I've spent over £300,000 on my marketing education in the last decade. I've had one-to-one mentors, I've flown 11 hours across the Atlantic just for a single coaching session, and I've bought more courses than Bonnie Blue has had.
What did he say?
Fortunately, most of what I'd spent has paid itself back multiple times over. Sadly though, that isn't always the case because unfortunately, some business coaches are just shit. In this video, I want to tell you why. I'll start this with a primer though, and that is to say that some business owners are also shit. I'm sure you've seen it all the time in your own business, whatever you do, whether you are a coach, a mentor, a copywriter, whatever it is. Some clients just don't do the work. And you'll get some who don't do the work and hold their hands up and say, yep, it was me who didn't do the work. Your coaching was great, your service was awesome, but I just didn't pull my weight. Whereas there are others who definitely don't see it like that. They play the victim, they like to play the sympathy card, and really they've really got no chance of success no matter who they sign up with or what program they do because they have a really bad attitude. For example, I've got several courses out there and I run several mentoring programs. The only bad review we've ever had of the mentoring program was someone who showed real red flags when he came in the first place. So this guy said to me and my business partner, he said, I've done loads of copywriting courses before and I've never really found that any of them have worked for me. Now, to be honest, at that stage, we should have just said, look, it's probably not a great fit here, because the more someone says I've done loads of stuff and none of it has worked, the more you kind of see that the common denominator is them and they're probably not going to be a great person to work with. But ultimately, we had a back and forth, we let him into the program, and like I said, he's the only person to ever give us a bad review. Those people are out there, so I don't want to make out that it's always the fault of the bad mentor or the bad coach. That said, unfortunately, there are a lot of people in the industry who maybe they've done well in their own business, maybe they haven't, but they've spotted the opportunity to go into coaching, to go into mentoring, and they really don't have any place to be there. They've got no system, they've got no track record. Ultimately, they're just out for themselves. So that's what I want to take you through today. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first way to spot a bad coach or mentor is they only ever talk about their own success or income. Now, someone's own success or income is actually a yardstick for their own success. I don't think we need to disregard it completely. There are lots of people who will say, well, I don't care about that, like what they did, it's an n=1 example. And there's a case to state that, but it still kind of knows they at least half know what they're doing. They've had some success, whether it's income, whether it's number of clients, whatever it is. Some people fake that, and that is crap. It's far too easy to do these days, and unfortunately, we don't really have a way around that. But just because someone has had success for themselves doesn't mean they're going to have success for you as well. So the typical things you see here are things like posting with supercars, that everything they have is designer. If they're taking a picture of their working setup, they have to get their Rolex in there, they have to get the key to their car, all that kind of stuff. Again, 1 or 2 times in isolation, it's not a massive red flag. If you're seeing that kind of stuff all the time, it probably tells you something. I don't know about you, but to me, that also screams insecurity. And I will hold my hands up. I've put pictures of my car on social media. I've put a picture of my watch. It's not like a 20-gram watch, but it's a nice one. I use it for content sometimes. Yes, there's an element of positioning to that. But if all someone is doing is showing material possessions, or even like trips around the world, even their swanky apartment and their house, I like to see some of that stuff. But if that's their main method of marketing, honestly, they're probably not going to be the best coach in the world. So income is definitely one success metric, but it's far from the only one. What I like to do is look at what people are doing for others. So have they coached someone else like me? Someone who had similar values, maybe a similar type of business, someone who was at a similar stage to me, and have they got them a result that I would like? For example, there are lots of great business coaches out there who might help someone like me in my business, but I just don't vibe with their model. They'll say about, oh, we can get you 30 qualified leads a month, or we can get you X many high ticket clients. That's not really what I want. There's not enough freedom in that model for me. So they might be amazing at what they do, but they're not going to gel with how I want to run my business. So yeah, don't disregard someone's income claims, someone's lifestyle, all that kind of stuff just from the off. But have a think, if that's all they're offering, what are they going to be able to offer you? The second big red flag is whether they focus on mechanisms over messaging. So what I mean by this is that a mechanism is something like webinar marketing or a certain type of funnel. Maybe it's having a setter and a closer. It's a particular social media system. Like if someone says, oh, I can help you blow up on Instagram, for example. Or if someone says all you need is ManyChat and an AI setter, that kind of thing. That's very much a mechanism. Whereas messaging is much more about the positioning, it's about the persuasion factor, it's kind of about building authority and having people buy from you no matter what mechanism you use. So case in point, I'm seeing a lot of ads at the moment where people are promoting their supposedly amazing mechanism. One springs to mind from the other day. There was a lady who had some sort of coaching business, and as people often do with these type of ads, she didn't really tell you what her business was. She didn't tell you who she worked with. I think it might have been coaches. But her whole thing was something like, I got rid of my entire marketing system, replaced everything with one live webinar funnel, and I made 120 grand in a month. Let me show you how to do it. Now, do I believe her claims? Maybe, maybe not. You know, people lie about this kind of stuff on the internet all the time, but in this instance, let's just give her the benefit of the doubt. Was that webinar the reason why stuff just started working better for her? I would really doubt it, because what this all comes down to is how good your offer is. You'll have heard me say before that offer is everything. It's the typical phrase of, you know, if you have a great offer, you can sell it even with bad copy, but world-class copy won't sell a bad offer. It's just how it goes, right? The audience and the offer itself, they're the two most important things you have. If you get those right, you can get a lot of other stuff wrong. So this lady, the way she was promoting her system, her method, whatever it was, it led me to believe one of two things. Either she knows that that's not the way that, or that's not the reason why her business suddenly got a lot better, but she's like, well, I don't really know how to explain it, so I'm just going to tell people it's a webinar funnel, I'm going to sell them on that. Or she doesn't know that that was the reason. And actually, she's kind of a bit clueless, so it's almost like the blind leading the blind. What could have happened is she had really good messaging, but she packaged it in a way that she thinks the way it was packaged was the secret, so to speak. Actually, it was the offer itself that made it work. The trouble is, if she doesn't know that, she's teaching you stuff that, yeah, it's just not going to have any relevance. Interestingly, someone actually messaged me the other day and said, you always talk about the messaging and the positioning aspect here, and you say, don't buy into people who promote systems and structures and strategies and that kind of thing. But surely we need that stuff as well. And you definitely do. Like, I'm not against talking about frameworks, about systems. I'll talk about email marketing. You know, I think email marketing is probably the best form of marketing on the planet. But I'm also aware that email marketing only works if you've got a great offer. So you kind of need the two. What I'm saying here is that if someone isn't talking to you at all about their positioning, their messaging, and how to work with that on your offer, that's probably a reason not to buy into them. The one question I like to ask is, does this sound like it will stand the test of time? So for example, we all know how quickly social media is changing. Just the other week, from the time of me recording this video, Instagram had a change that meant something like you used to be able to message every new follower who came to you from an ad, and you could do it en masse as a group action. Instagram changed some stuff, and all of a sudden you can't do that. Lots of people's businesses suddenly fell down overnight. That's because they were marketing based on a mechanism rather than messaging. So you can use that stuff, but you need the messaging behind it to make it work. And a lot of business coaches are making their living based on things like, well, we'll show you how to sell via ManyChat, via TikTok Shop, by all this kind of stuff that could go overnight. The thing that won't go overnight is human emotion, behavioral psychology, all that kind of stuff. So please, please, please make sure if you hire a coach, if you hire a mentor, they're at least touching on that stuff, if not focusing on it over the mechanisms. And then the third big red flag is your potential coach or potential mentor, are they flip-flopping from industry to industry? This is not to say that people can't pivot, but there's been kind of a worrying trend, certainly in the last few years, of mentors sort of having like a new speciality every year. So we'll see it that, I don't know, maybe a few years ago they were teaching copy. Then they switched to teaching funnels. Then it was something like with AI last year. And now they've gone for personal branding, for example. All of those models have merit, but you have to ask yourself, if someone needs to switch every single year, does that show they've really got a viable, long-lasting business model? Again, I don't want to be overly skeptical here, because people might genuinely believe they found the next best thing, but chances are they probably haven't, they're just jumping on a trend. So look at what they're saying and think, do they actually believe this? If they were saying something was the best way of doing something last year, and they can't logically explain why this new way is now the best way of doing it, what does that say about what they're doing? Have they got your best interests at heart? Or actually are they just thinking, do you know what? This seems cool at the moment, it seems on trend. I'm going to hop on that bandwagon and try and sell something with it. This has only got fast with AI as well, where people are kind of outsourcing their thinking, and they're going to AI and saying like, I want to create this cool new offer because I've got a coaching program to sell, and AI is creating it for them. Like, they're not being experts in it. So I'm the first to admit, I've had a bit of a career pivot the last 18 months. I've gone from teaching purely copywriting to teaching action-based psychology. But there's a few differences here. For a start, I actually learned this stuff. I spent time doing it in my own business with my own clients, then started teaching other copywriting consultants. And secondly, I showed the journey. me. I would post on stories about what books I was reading. I was posting about the conferences I was going to, the podcasts I was listening to. So when you see someone who has a bit of a pivot, just check, are they doing that as well, or does it seem quite out of the blue? So my one main thing with this video is I don't want to make it sound like you should be super skeptical of business coaches. If you're any kind of business owner, you've probably had those people who comment on your ads, even your organic social media, and say like, this is a scam. That's especially true if you're in the business space. Anytime I talk about making money or having a freedom lifestyle, not having a boss, ditching the 9 to 5, all that kind of stuff, I get just absolute wieners in the comments saying about how I'm a snake oil salesman and conning people out of money. Like, this video is not for them because they're never going to spend any money on coaching or investing in themselves anyway. But what I'm trying to say is that at the same time, as business owners, as marketers, we often like to spend money, and that means we're kind of primed to spend it with the wrong people. I'm happy to say this as well, like, even as a marketer, even as someone who knows what's going on, I also like investing in people. I like giving people the benefit of the doubt. And so even though most of my investments in business coaches, in mentors and courses are paid back, I still need to teach myself to be a bit more skeptical. So you definitely want to keep your wits about you. And there's probably 3 key questions you want to ask before you actually give anyone any money. First of all, do they care as much about my business as they do theirs? Obviously, they're probably not going to care quite as much about your business, but there shouldn't be that much of a gap. If you see them spending more time on their own content than they are replying to your emails and that kind of thing, it's probably not the best sign. If you've gone days or even weeks without a response, but they're still present on social media, they're probably a bit of a shit business coach and they probably don't care about you. Secondly, have they got something genuinely different to offer? I see this a lot in the fitness business coaching space. There are some amazing guys in there. Like, I've worked with people in the past like Adam Haley, he's awesome. I've worked with Dan and Mike at Business and Banter, who are fantastic. There's loads of people, like if I named the guys that I trust and like, there'd be too many here. But this isn't me to say that the whole industry is corrupt, but there's a massive trend here of people who've been good coaches and have decent businesses, all going into becoming business mentors. And what they tend to do is they just kind of copy the systems that they learn from their mentors, and there's nothing new there. They'll talk to you about having a content plan or a marketing strategy, and you're like, well, yeah, because that's like saying for training, you need a training plan and a diet plan. It's really obvious. So if you see them sharing stuff that you've heard elsewhere, or their promise or their mechanism is just super vague, probably best to stay clear. And then finally, this is the big one for me, but do I admire them as a person? So recently I sat down and I thought, who are the people I admire most in business and what characteristics do they have? And what I came up with was that 1, they're generally positive. They don't post a lot of negative stuff, or if they do, it's very nuanced and it's for a reason. It's kind of to help people. Secondly, they're not tied to social media. I don't see them kind of posting hundreds of times a day. I don't see them needing to respond to comments within minutes of them going up. They seem to be living a life offline as well as online. Third, they just seem pretty chilled. They seem to not worry too much about money. And money certainly wasn't the main part of their messaging. What they did was they implied that they were wealthy by their actions, by their confidence, and just kind of by how they showed up in their content. And fourth, I thought, could I actually enjoy hanging out with this person, getting a coffee, getting a beer, that kind of thing? And the answer was definitely yes. So my big thing here is like, don't buy into someone who you wouldn't want to hang out with in real life. You can respect someone for much more than just their money. And if you're giving them your money, you should probably respect their lifestyle, their values, their ethos, and all that kind of stuff as well. Anyway, that's kind of all I've got for you in this video. There's no pitch, there's no call to action, but if you enjoyed it, and actually if you want to help other people avoid shitty business coaches, give it a like, give it a share, and maybe send it to a friend.